Okay, well, welcome to the study of the KYBALION, a 4,000-year-old text that we study to take ourselves back to the original texts of learning the universal laws.
Yes, so welcome everybody to the KYBALION. We are so happy to be teaching this, these principles. These principles are basically the roadmap to any person who's actually navigating through life. These principles actually came they're one of the first ones. They're the kind of the root principles of each and every book that we all read. So, all the books like Think and Grow Rich, the books by Neville Goddard, they all make reference to the KYBALION. So the KYBALION's principles, you can see them throughout a lot of the things that you'll study. And the more you study them, the more you'll recognize them through your life. It's almost like, when we buy a new TV, it comes with instructions. When we came into the world, we didn't have instructions. So the KYBALION is really the instructions for anybody who wants to navigate very successfully through the world. So I'll just give you a little bit of before I give it to Carolyn. So today we're going to study the principle of mentalism. And so these 7 principles will be discussed and explained as we proceed with the lessons from the study of the Hermetic philosophy of ancient Egypt and Greece. By 3 initiates, these principles constitute the master key through which universal wisdom are expressed in natural laws, which are universal and man-made, that act as a governing dynamics of consciousness. With the master key in your possession, the student may unlock the many doors of the mental and psychic temple of knowledge and enter the same freely and intelligently. So Carolyn's going to give us a little bit of a background on, the 3 initiates and, how it came to this philosophy and what is so important to put into practice these laws, because they do affect the way, the way that you live your life. Every situation that happens in your life happens by the power of your mind. So it's so important that you understand where everything originates from, because now you understand the root cause of all the effects in your life. And once you understand that, well, you become a mental alchemist, because you understand that you have the power to transform anything by the power of your mind.
So this book, I'm just going to read some the bits and pieces of text that we've put together over our study time that kind of gives a little bit more of a historical as to where these teachings originally came from. So Pazit mentioned the 3 initiates. I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of information about that. So the book is really going into the philosophical underpinnings of seven different very powerful and profound universal principles. So in the KYBALION, like we call it the universal laws in some of our teachings, the KYBALION really does refer to them as the 7 master principles. Okay, the law of attraction is the result of the application of these principles that we study in this book. So why do we study this material? So that we can manifest our destiny, so that we can guide our lives and what we see and what we do and whatever we choose. So the reference here is to Hermes Trismegistus. Okay, that's the name, and he is attributed as the father of astrology, of chemistry, of mathematics, and of all kinds of archaeology that goes back to the very, very beginnings of this form of the race of man. He's been called the master of masters, and there is an abundant amount of proof that people came from all over the ancient world to study at his feet. So what's interesting is for anyone who actually studies any type of world religion, there's unquestionable proof that every one of these principles, whether you study Hinduism or Buddhism or any of organized religion, it traces its influence back to the Hermetic teaching. So this is where Hermes, these principles are based on what we would call Hermetic teachings. So this is not religion, it's a theology, but it does provide master key. So understanding the 7 core principles of Hermetic philosophy, which is based here in the KYBALION, simply provide a master key. So the guiding thrust of what we're studying is to get to the truth of the working principles that enable us to create, to manifest, and to become co-creators and live our fullest and highest and best versions of ourselves. So regardless of whatever your knowledge is, whether you study philosophy or theology, this allows you to go deeper into the reasons that we do what we do. So Hermes, he was a great teacher, and he planted these seed truths. Okay, he did that instead of establishing a philosophical school, because all philosophical schools had original concepts, but you had to pass these particular concepts from ear to ear, from lip to ear, because don't forget, 4,000 years ago, anybody who would be speaking these type of truths would have been considered somebody that was speaking words of the devil or speaking any type of occultism. So Pazit will tell us a story afterwards about how she came 3 times to this material, because this material comes to those who are ready to hear it. So for everybody in the room, it's not by accident that these truths are coming to you through this material and this teaching now. In other words, you are all ready to receive the material. So yes, we're going back 4,000 years. And what's interesting is that even the principles from 4,000 years ago, we apply these principles today.
Yeah, what I love about these principles, it's not like something that goes out of style. It's basically it's like a garden, when you put a seed in the ground, okay, you know that it's going to grow. Even though this is something that the farmers have been doing for years and years and years, it still applies to today. In order to have fruit, the process is the same. It has not changed over the years.
So it says here that the KYBALION is really simply nothing more than a compilation of basic Hermetic doctrines. And Hermes had 2 other initiates. And of course, there's no names because nobody was to be named. But these 3 initiates created this particular doctrine, this book. And this book is the basis of all other books. So like we said in the beginning, any of the recent teachings that are very, very well documented, like the teaching of the laws in the books that we've studied, these original principles date back before any of the biblical teachings, which is why you will find them referred to in biblical teaching. So these 3 initiates wrote this document. Okay, and it was kept secret over years and years and years, hermetically sealed. That means it is not touched by anybody. And then throughout the years, certain people have come into certain centuries to teach it and to expand on it. But we know it today as universal law. The original universal laws, as many as there are now, not man-made universal laws, they all started with this teaching.
That's also a big reason why a lot of people also have not heard of the KYBALION, because it was really kept to secrecy and occult. That's what occult means. Occult is, it means like it's secrecy. Why was it kept to secrecy? Because they understood that this is so powerful. Okay, if it got into the wrong hands, if somebody can take these laws and they can use it to a positive or they can use it to a negative. And so they understood that if it got into the wrong hands, it would create like chaos. So that's why they didn't want to pass it on. And this book only comes, like Carolyn says, it's almost by attraction. It only comes into your life once you're ready. And you'll see it doesn't just come once. It comes twice, 3 times until you're like, okay, I got to look at this. What is this book,
Exactly. So essentially, it's the art of mental alchemy. This is what we'll learn. And the first principle, of course, is about mentalism. So everything is based on the power of the mind, which so attendees here have studied the power of the mind. This is the original concept. So it's the art of mental alchemy, transforming and transmuting one mental vibrational state into another vibrational state. It's all about the use of the mind and the vibration of thought. And that is what this study teaches. So this entire concept, this study that we are now in, leads to mental mastery of our mental faculties: reason, will, imagination, recall, and intuition. These are the mental faculties. The ability to receive input from infinite intelligence is a vibrational mental faculty. So you're going to learn some of these 7 core principles. You'll recognize that it has been renamed something throughout the years, but these 7 core principles, some of them you may, like the principle of vibration. Actually, I'm just going to read down what the 7 core principles are so that we can start on the first one, the principle of mentalism. But we're going to study mentalism, the principle of correspondence, the principle of vibration, the principle of polarity, the principle of gender, the principle of rhythm, and the principle of cause and effect. So some of those you'll recognize, some of those have been expanded, but if you really want to know how to master your mind, these are the magic keys to the kingdom.
Absolutely. And what I wanted to say is, when we say alchemy, alchemy is your power, right? Alchemy is when you can turn something into something else. So in the past, they would, they would believe that they could turn like silver and copper into gold. Okay. And so basically what they're saying, what this comes to say, is that you can turn your thoughts. So a lot of us who we can have like thoughts of lack, we can turn them into thoughts of prosperity, thoughts of, things are hard. We can turn it as thoughts of things are come to me with ease. This is the alchemy. The alchemy is to transmute, or to transform your thought from one degree to another. We don't, the Hermetics don't believe in opposites, when we say love and hate, for them, it's the same thing. It's just something that is separated by degrees, just like water. When does it become hot and when does it become cold? It's very different depending on my tolerance of hot. It's going to be different to me for what I consider hot than what Carolyn considers hot or what you guys consider hot. So the only difference is the difference of degrees. It's one of the same. They don't see that as opposites. So I'll go a little bit into the principle of mentalism. And so I wanted to start with this little quote. So the KYBALION is really actually quite revealing and quite telling about you. It's about your ability to attract and to use the law of attraction to draw into your lives everything that you want. So the practice of these principles will get you to attract everything you want. You'll understand that the universe works by law, and you will start seeing these laws in every area of your life. And then you start playing with these laws, and you'll see that by just playing with your mind, things in your, out picture, things in your life will reflect very much of things in your mind. So you start making the mind connection with the outer world. So the first principle is the principle of mentalism, and they say the all is mind and the universe is mental. So, we've been taught to like, oh my God, like the word mental, people associate some kind of like, oh, mental, it's crazy. That's why they call all this historic thing woo-woo, because it's mental. Mental just means that it's in the mind. It's in the mind. It's a distortion to think that mental means crazy. So mental just means that everything starts in your mind. So mentalism is the number one principle, and all the others are built on it. So you gotta really understand that this is the number one principle. Every other principle that comes, like Carolyn was mentioning, correspondence, vibration, they're all built on this one principle, that it starts in here. Okay, the all contains everything, and everybody is thought. It is mind. Everything that is, even time has a beginning. Each and every one of us is a splinter of the one mind. As such, the material universe is not strictly material as many assume. So basically, because we're physical and each one of us is an individual, we look like we're separate. But the truth is that we all come from one consciousness. And the best example I can give is when you look at the sun. We're all, whether I'm in Montreal, in Miami, in Paris, in London, it's still the same sun. It's not like a different sun for every country. It's one sun. So we although we all perceive it in a different location, depending to where we are geographically, it might seem like there's many suns around the world. So consciousness is the same. We all come from one consciousness, but because we are physical and we are individual, we tend to think that we are one, that we are that we are separate, but we are not separate. So the principle of the KYBALION has 5 chapters dealing with the principle of mentalism. There's the mental transmutation, the all, the mental universe, the divine paradox, and the all in all. So whether you know it or not, we are delegates of the Creator, actively creating moment by moment. If you're not actively changing the universe, you are being passively used to do so. So choose to be an active participant. So what does that mean? It just means that you can choose to participate, meaning you can choose to choose your thoughts, or you can choose to go with the thoughts of others, because thoughts are transferred. Okay, so as a consciousness, depending of where you live, okay, you'll pick up like different consciousness. That's why sometimes if you go into different locations or different rooms, you might say, I like the vibe, I don't like the vibe, is because you're picking up the consciousness, the collective consciousness, and every city and every region has one. Okay, so you can either go with the way everybody's thinking and just kind of flow with their thoughts, and you don't have to do anything, a little bit like being a passenger in a car, or you can become the driver in the car. This is what we're teaching you. We're teaching you to become the drivers of your reality. Okay, you're not at the mercy of it. You can take the steering wheel and take it whichever way you want.
It's a very powerful. If you just think about that for a couple of minutes, how you get to control the outcome, and most people live their life as victims of the circumstance around them. And it's what we've been taught, right? Like it's not our fault. We've been taught that way, where we seek happiness only if this happens. But in fact, it's our thoughts that creates the happiness on the out picture, right? So like Pazit was saying, when you're in different environments in different cities, and everybody knows what that feels like. It's like, oh my gosh, this is like, I'm feeling really joyful here, and everybody's in that kind of vibe. You can, if you're in a place that doesn't feel good to you, you can actually change your own vibration anytime you want. You do not have to be subject to everybody else around you. And that's a very powerful way of living your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm going to jump into the first one, which is mental transmutation. And the essence of the principle of mentalism is everything that we think of as reality was first conceived in the mind. So you have to understand that everything that you see in your reality, your environment, we call it the out picture of your life, was conceived in your mind first. Everything is made up of the same energy. It is simply manifested in different ways. So no matter what, there is a way to transform that energy into other forms. There's the power, guys. There's the power. That if you don't like the picture, you don't have to stay in it. You can choose different thoughts, and by choosing different thoughts, you create a different reality. So that's really powerful. That's what's transmutation. Transmutation means taking something and turning it into something else. Change is constant of the universe. Of course, the most coveted energy transformation is to convert lead into gold. And what people need to realize is that when we can transform ideas into reality, that's the power. So you transform your ideas into reality. And so they say that artists do that naturally. So the example that I gave is a baker takes flour, eggs, sugar, milk, and transmute them into a beautiful cake, right? So we take every single ingredient separately, but together we can make a cake with it. So also the car started out as a vision in the imagination of a person. Others joined the project and synergetically combined their energies, acting ever forward. But no matter what, mankind can only create with materials already in its existence. So meaning we create from our environment. Whatever is here, we can use the tools to create something better. If you think of anything, how a computer was created, how a phone was created, all the materials are all here. We just have to come into awareness that they are here, and get the idea of what to create. Otherwise there would be, once a person was, we used to take horses, right? We used to like ride on horses. And then somebody said, oh, you know what if we had an engine, we can go faster. They had this idea. And then they created the car. And then somebody said, you know what if we can like fly and go from place to place and go faster? So they created planes. And then there's like, oh, what if we invented like, something that can float on water? And so they created ships. And everything that was created, the materials were already here from the earth, right? So the earth is really your playground, meaning like everything is here. And this is a little bit like your lab. You go, you take whatever you need to create whatever it is, whatever idea you have in your mind.
And that's why it's so important when you get an idea, right? When you're supplied by the infinite an idea, you must pay attention to that idea. You must take it seriously because it has basically been handed to you to do something with it. So imagine if Orville and Wilbur Wright got the idea to create what they called then a flying machine, and they said, nah, not doable.
Right. And that was before, there was anything, right? Before, like, there was not even an airplane that exists. There was no model to replicate. Today, we improve a lot on models, but back then there wasn't a model to replicate. So,
So
when
they
you
got an idea, and they took that idea seriously, and they knew that was an idea that was worth expanding on. And so the materials they needed were already here.
That's
So
right.
they went and they created something based on an idea. That's why it's so important in our lives when we become aware and we're living and guided by the law, the universal laws, or any of these principles. We become aware that we are supplied with everything we could possibly want. So you really start paying attention to the ideas that come your way, because when it'll come your way, and it'll keep coming your way until you actually take action, and the universe responds to action. So get an idea, take action on the idea, and watch your life transform. That's how you can change your reality.
That's how we create. Exactly. So the all is called God by many. He made the all, everything that was, is, and will be. Mental transmutation happens in the mind. The all made everything by thought. It all begins in the mind. No matter what is made, it must begin with an idea. Even when God called light forth from darkness, it began with a thought. Before the word, it was the thought of the mind of God. So before there was light, he had to think of this idea of light, right? And so the same comes to you. So then we'll go into the next chapter, which is the all. And the all means that it's potential energy. And we have the power to transmute that energy into matter. That means we take the energy, the thoughts, right, the seed, and we're able to transform it into our reality. So the best example, again, is a carrot. When it starts as a seed. You plant it into the soil, and what do you get? You get this vegetable, this long vegetable, which is called a carrot as a result. Okay, so the same thing in your, when you're creating anything, when you're creating a book, when you're creating art, when you're creating the piñata. Okay, it all starts with an idea in the mind, and then we, next thing we know, we bring it into the world. So the mind is everything. What you think, you become. What you think, you become. It was so funny because Carolyn and I were talking about this, and I said to her, I heard this phrase for so long. What you think, you become. I heard it, for so many years, but I never understood. That it's really what I'm thinking that is creating my reality. It's like I saw the words, I heard them, but I did not understand them. So I didn't know how to apply them. So now we're teaching you that, yes, the words that you think, this is the substance that creates. This is your flour. This is, like if we go back to the example of the cake, this is your eggs, your flour. This is it. Those are what the thoughts are. And the cake is a result of what you're mixing up in here. So the all
You
is,
got to be careful about the ingredients you put in your cake.
that's right. So the all is rhythm. We know that we are living in a universe of thought power. We know that we are capable of creative thought. We know that we are vibrational entities living in a vibrational realm. And so when we start to take this particular principle and apply it, unravel it, and understand it, what we're doing is we're unlocking a very, very important key to the knowledge of how to apply this wisdom, because of the fact that everything in existence emanates from the same source, the all. That means that the same laws, all of these principles that are characteristics of them, apply to every single unit activity, regardless of how minute or cosmic. What does that mean? It means that we're always thinking. We're always thinking, so it's always being applied. So now that you know that your thoughts create your reality, now you understand that your thoughts is the substance from which everything in your world is projected. Okay, then you understand. You're thinking, what picture would you want? I always think of our mind like a camera, and this is our film. So what kind of film you want, because that's the movie you're going to be watching. The movie is called your life. So, so sometimes even without talking, just by looking at somebody, it's very easy for me to say or to see where their thoughts are. I just look at their environment. If the environment is all messy or upside down, I know that in their mind, it's chaos. It's very easy to see if somebody's in lack, or, if you're walking down the streets. Yesterday I was downtown Montreal, and I saw so many homeless people. I know where their thoughts are. Obviously, they're on lack and scarcity. So it's very easy to tell by the out picture where people's thoughts are. And so the same is for you. And so now you are aware of it. So that's what makes it fun. Now you become the driver. Now life becomes fun. So the principle of mentalism by Dr. Chuck Missler wrote about the universe digital. He writes that the world is a digital simulation, a hologram. It is not real, and it is all in the mind of the all. This introduces a paradox that the universe is real and it's not. So the universe feels real. It feels real because we are, like, obviously spiritual beings, but because we're having a physical experience and this body feels so real to us, so real, that we don't believe that it's not real. So that's why they're saying by simulation. So what is a divine paradox? A seemingly absurd or self-contradictory statement or proposition that, when investigated or explained, may prove to be well-founded or true. This paradox is a spin-off of the principle of polarity. You begin to see how these principles are all integrated. It is the opposition of absolute reality versus relative reality. So the point of view is, so it depends the point of view that you're looking at life from, okay? Is it an absolute, in the absolute, the world is an illusion. In the relative plane, we see the world as real. So from our vantage point, from the finite mind of humankind, well, we see this construct is very real. It's very solid. That's why, we call it solid, right? It's very tangible. There's nothing illusionary about it, right? So that's the paradox. So the paradox is like, it feels real, but it's not real, because, like, we get to create it. Like, it just feels real because we get to touch everything, right? We get to touch, so it's hard for us to think that, oh my God, everything is a vibration, everything is moving. Yet when I love this, Bob Proctor talks about this a lot, about this photographer, that when he photographed people, he would photograph them so we could see the energy that's emanating from them, so we understand that we're energy beings, right? So it's kind of like that. We're energy beings, but when we look in the mirror, we don't see energy. We don't see, like, lights and, molecules moving. We see
energy that's
solid.
moving very, very fast, and very,
Right.
very fast energy creates something solid.
Right.
That's what we're accustomed to seeing. But in fact, if you know that everything is energy, you also know you can transmute that energy into whatever you want.
Exactly. So because we're living in the matrix, people think with strong beliefs, and they can break the law. So the master knows better. People who try to break the law find that the law breaks them. The law is unbreakable, period. As mentioned in the section of the principle of cause and effect, when you step off a cliff, the law of gravity takes over. If, however, you have a parachute or hang glider, the law of aerodynamics takes precedence. Then you aren't breaking the law. You are following the higher law. So this is really about following the higher law, and the higher law is in your mind, right? So the all is not so the next chapter is the all is in all, and the all is not outside of the universe. The all is the universe. It is the universe, meaning we are the universe. Each one of us are mini universes, and we think ourselves as separate, but we are not as separate. We are all part of this, this one big thing. We are all the sun, no matter where we are, even though it might appear like there's many, many suns. There's only one. Many people are afraid to use the word God and have replaced it with the word universe. The KYBALION uses the word the all because that's all there is. There is nothing outside of the all. In fact, the universe we know is a subset called the all. So how do you apply the principle of mentalism? You think about it. That's all you do. You think about it. Thought is everything. If you know how something works and it doesn't, then you know how to fix it. Meaning, if you know that your thoughts create your reality, and you don't like the reality that you see, you know that you can fix it by going back in your workshop and fixing the thoughts that are creating the reality that you want or don't want, okay? So you get to choose. There's no right or wrong, guys. There's no right or wrong. Everybody has a preference, and you choose the thoughts that are right for you. Understanding how our universe works moves your vibration up an octave. In the new octave, there's a different higher laws you must learn. The KYBALION is your master key. Mastery is not possible without it, but having it doesn't guarantee mastery. Thought must beget action, and learning does not take place. So there is no static state. It is all relative. If everything is increasing and you are not, you are decreasing relatively to everything else. To get from thought to being, you must do. So action. You must take action, right? So your body is really, so your body is really the command. It's our body is, the way I want you to think of it, it's like our machine. The body is like the machine. So the mind, the thoughts tell this body what to do. Like when you turn a mixer on, right? It's like the mixer, understand it has to mix. This is, our body works the same like this mixer. You tell your mind, oh, I want to sleep today, I'm tired. Your body says, okay, we're tired, let's go sleep.
It's like the command center, the switching station, right? All the commands come from your mind. And how do you know what you've been thinking about the most? Check your results. Look around you. See what's happening in your life. You know, sometimes when people say, oh my gosh, these bad things, because we know that nothing is good or bad, right? It's just our thinking that attaches an identity to it. You know, if it's a bad day or a good day, it's just a day. You attach meaning to it. So, you know, if you're seeing, or you know, people that constantly are saying, I have such bad luck, bad things keep coming to me, bad things keep showing up in my world, you got to check what you're thinking about. It's not just random things that are just happening. They're all based on the thoughts that we think. So if we see that we're thinking a certain way, and we keep thinking that way, by law, that vibrational energy is going to expand. And what you keep expanding and putting your attention on, you will keep expanding and give it more and more power. So if you are examining your thoughts and you go, you know, I spend an awful lot of time complaining about this situation in my life, you're actually creating more situations like it to attach to those thoughts to create a really more powerful vibration in a direction that you may not want.
Right. So if you complain about something, so just in essence, if you're complaining about something and you keep complaining about it, well, you're going to keep getting more things to complain about. Okay. So if you keep saying, oh my God, it's so hot. Okay. Like now it's summer, right? Oh my God, it's so hot. It's so hot. It's so hot. I can't take it. This heat, you know? So that becomes like every day becomes like, it's so hot. Everything becomes uncomfortable. And then you find more things to complain about, you know, then your AC doesn't work. And you're like, oh no, now it's so hot in the car. Now I don't have my AC now, you know, then the AC in your house goes down. You're like, oh no, it's so hot. Right? So it's kind of funny because the thought follows you. Sorry, it's funny, but it's true. The thought follows you, you know? So you have to remember that. So now that you know that the thought follows you and you're thinking, but wait a minute, I have the power to change this thought. I have the power to change what I am experiencing in my life. I have the power to change this movie, this image, whatever you want to call your life is, you know? You have the power to change it. So you know that all you got to do is change your thought, and you could just say like, oh my God, I love it. It feels so cool here. The temperature is so perfect. Just even saying that and saying it over and over again, it creates that situation. And sorry, I just had this like thought. So there was this guy, this is a true story actually. There was this guy that used to drive a food truck. Okay. And the food truck was like a fridge, right? Because they used to put food in it. And so it used to be very, very cold. And so at the end of the shift, they had to like bring, you know, the food trucks back. So what he did is he bought the food truck back and he went inside the truck. And for some reason, he closed himself. And when you close the doors, you can only open them from the outside. So he was kind of locked in. And all of a sudden, he started like, you know, he was like locked in. He was knocking. He couldn't get anybody. So in his mind, he started being cold. He was freezing. And then in the morning when the staff, you know, like, you know, came to take the trucks, they found him dead. And when they did an autopsy, they saw that he died of being frozen. But yet when they looked at the truck, the freezer wasn't even on. Do you understand the power of the thought? The freezer wasn't even on. It wasn't even active, which means it was at cool temperature. He built this whole scenario that he's going to freeze to death because he knows that usually the truck is cold, that area is cold. And so with the power of his thoughts, he actually froze himself. And in the autopsy, it actually showed that he froze to death, when in reality it was done, everybody was astounded because the temperature in the freezer zone was room temperature.
And that's why, when you say, well, how do I change my thinking then? Because you can feel when your thoughts are taking you down that place where it just keeps, because we know what that feels like, your thought and then something else compounds something else. So this is why I often use the thinking of the power of gratitude and appreciation. So if you want to change your thought patterns because you know that you're not producing the outcomes that you want, as much as you're thinking about things that don't serve you and complaining will create more, same as the thoughts of gratitude and appreciation. So it's really a great go-to tool, using the exact same principle, but for things that will show up to serve you. So all you need to do is really refocus your thinking onto things that you love, things that you're grateful for, things and people and places and times and thoughts of appreciation and gratitude. And right away, like even saying it, it changes your whole composure. You feel better, you feel good. And then guess what happens? You attract more and more things to be grateful for, instead of attracting more and more things to complain about. So that's how much power just changing your thought pattern can have in your life, and use that as like a little mini tool. If you find you're going down that rabbit hole of unwanted thoughts, just think of things you want, think of things you like and things you appreciate, and all of a sudden your out picture will change.
Yeah, you'll become a match to it. So you really have to just be conscious of your thoughts, and you have to remember that the out picture is just feedback, guys. It's just feedback. You're not meant to stay there. If you don't like it, if you like it, you can stay there as long as you want. But if you don't like it, I'm only talking about situations where you're unhappy with where you are in your life, then you have the power to change it. It comes to everything, whether it's relationship, financial, your body, anything, if you don't like it, you have the power to change it. All that to change by thought. You can make working out as like, oh, I hate working out, or you can make working out to, I love working out. It's really, you decide to choose what degree you want to choose, you want to go about it. So if you see, like, if finances is an issue, if you don't like the situation in your finances, well, just start thinking, what am I thinking about that is creating this situation? What are thoughts? Am I thinking thoughts of lack? And then you could see yourself when you go in a store, you can catch yourself. You're like, oh, it's too expensive. Oh no, I don't want to afford that. Are you always looking for the least expensive thing when you're buying? These are really good indicators of your behaviors. Those are really good indicators of a bit of a scarcity mindset, because people that are abundant, they don't really look at price so much. They just look, they like it, they take it, So you can start seeing, once you see your out picture, you look at the house that you live in, you think, is this where I want to be? Do I want better? Do I want more? Or is this good for me? And you get to choose. If you want more, then you have to think higher thoughts in order for you to to be on that frequency. You got to match yourself to the frequency, and the only way you can match yourself is by the power of vision and the power of thoughts. But it all starts with the thought that I want something bigger. So a lot of people, they start with a one bedroom. I remember Tony Robbins, he said he started with 400 square feet at the time. He didn't have money, but he always saw himself like in a mansion, and I think he was in the mansion within 2 years of the day that he thought that thought. But it was a thought. He was living in a smaller space, and then he had a thought that he wanted a bigger space. So then he thought of how he can create this bigger space in his life. And so what I want to share with you, some cool nuggets on the KYBALION. So they say that we only manifest this information in our lives when we are ready to receive it. So if you're actually here, that puts you among maybe the top 1% of seekers. There's only 1% of seekers. This is why sometimes when you'll meet a lot of people in your life, like friends and family, they don't know about this. And a lot of people retract back to the familiar because they're like, everybody's like, what are you talking about? There's only 1%, so there's not a lot of us. This is why we create these communities, we create these masterminds to offer you all a place to come to be able to explore and to let you know that no, you're not going mental, so to speak, but the world is mental, you know, and so that, you know, you understand what most people don't understand. So it comes to you because you're ready, and not only you're ready to take it on and to learn the knowledge, but once you learn the knowledge, you're also ready to pass it on. So you wouldn't be here if you weren't looking for it. So that's kind of, you know, so that just tells you where you guys are placed. You're like, you know, top 1%. So that's really huge. So I think that we've expanded the whole principle of you know, mentalism, and now you really understand that your thoughts are the creative power. The thoughts are the seeds. The closest analogy I can find is really the garden. You know, your thoughts are like seeds. If you plant carrots, you're not going to get a potato. Okay, if you plant carrots, you're going to get a carrot. If you plant lack, you will get lack. If you plant abundance, you will get abundance. And it doesn't matter what your outer world is projecting. Let's just say right now, let's just say right now you're in lack. In your mind, you can be abundant. You could still feel rich in your mind. Okay, this is where the power of creation is. And because you're holding this image of you and wealth, eventually you and wealth will catch up to you, will become your new reality. And how do you do that? You do that by the power of your mind. So I hope you guys enjoyed, you know, like just the mentalism. And I think next week we're going into the, you know, 2 other further principles. But we would love to open the floor for questions, comments. You know, if you're curious how to apply it. It's important to know the knowledge, but more importantly, it's for you to understand it and to apply it into your life every single day.
So I'm just going to pause us now, and